Hello and welcome to Tifo IRL. Today, the Athletic's John Muller and I are going to be discussing Villarreal. So Villarreal have overperformed expectations so far in the Champions League. They're through to a semi-final battle against Liverpool. Very, very exciting. And on the way, they have dispatched Juventus. That's impressive. Bayern Munich, that's even more impressive. John, you wrote a really good article on The Athletic about how Villarreal do like to sit deep, do like to defend in a compact block, but do not just pump it forwards afterwards. Can you just talk us through a little bit what they do?
Yeah, so I was really struck by the way that they played against Bayern Munich, especially in the second leg when they were defending a 1-0 lead. And they usually play a 4-2-2-2. And what they did in this one was dropped, very deep. Bayern Munich had most of the ball in their third. And they pushed their three center backs really kind of all the way up to the edge of the final third, because they had as many as 6 players between Villarreal's lines, which were very, very compressed, very compact. And what they were doing was they were using their wing backs here. They had Sané on this side, and I think it was Coman on this side, to cut inside and deliver a lot of crosses. They were looking for Lewandowski, but Albiol was shutting them down. So what was happening was Villarreal was getting the ball on goal kicks. And rather than look long and try to go over the top of these 3 center backs who have been pushed extremely high, they were splitting their center backs super, super wide, almost all the way to the sidelines here. They're pushing their fullbacks a little bit up here. And these 2 strikers were sitting right here, bringing the center backs back. And what this did, by splitting their center backs super wide, was it brought all of Bayern's pressers forward, and it created space in front of Bayern's 3 center backs. So they were playing kind of slowly, kind of building this way and that way.
So we can show here like this. Estupiñán would drop in here, say Coquelin would drop in here, and they create these little passing triangles like this in order to suck the Bayern players towards and try and cut off these passing options in this area, and then that creates space elsewhere on the pitch.
That's exactly right. And there was one possession that really stood out to me early in the game. It was about 5 minutes in, and they started with a throw-in down here by this little triangle, and they passed in these little triangles, drawing Bayern's pressers over this way. Then they went through Rui over to the other side. They passed in some little triangles over here. And after a while, they just broke through the midfield, and Parejo was open in all this space right here and was able to just walk into Bayern's half. They attacked up this wing, didn't work, went all the way back to Rui, came back, attacked over to this wing, and then Moreno was able to cut inside and shoot. And it was just really just a very patient possession, not the kind of thing that you would expect to see from an underdog playing against one of the best teams in the world.
So this is the point. When you have an underdog in this way, and we, in the Premier League, we might look at a Burnley, for example, compact, low block, compress the space between the lines, shut the other team out, and then go long because that's the opportunity. You can target the space in behind, or you can target this space. What's the benefit that Villarreal have accrued by this style of play, the patience? Is it just a way of drawing the press and tiring out the opposition players?
So I think there were a couple things going on. Number one, they wanted to control the tempo against Bayern Munich, who's a very, very fast end-to-end team. And if you give them that end-to-end game, they'll tear you apart. Same with Liverpool. And I think the Villarreal wanted to kind of slow things down a little bit, and having the confidence to possess the ball in their own third like that did that. But also, by splitting their center backs wide, and by kind of creating this little box right here where they could then play balls from the outside into this little box, they were kind of getting the ball with one of these players in front of Bayern's center backs and then playing through in a much more controlled way, whereas a lot of teams, I think, would try to counter up the wings with long balls and just try play over the top the first time. And so we saw Parejo a couple times in that game tried to pass into the center circle, right? And one time Coman came in, cut it out, and Lewandowski scored. But another time he got it, Lo Celso cut across. And Parejo, by being very calm on the ball, by playing in front of the line rather than over the line, he created a controlled counterattack, and that's how Villarreal wound up scoring the goal to put them through.
So we'll look in a little bit at some of these individual players. But this is a style of play that seems to be predicated on having players of strong technical ability, good passing, not necessarily what you'd associate with a low block side. So let's look at how they differ in the Champions League from how they play in La Liga. So in La Liga, what we can see here from this graphic that you've created for us is that there is quite a significant disparity in their style. And that to me suggests that this is a team that kind of practices a certain style of press and possess, is good at working the ball through the lines, and has then kind of adapted that for Champions League football. Is that fair to say? Can you talk us through what this shows?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here are percentile scores compared to La Liga teams and compared to the teams that made the knockout rounds of the Champions League. So Villarreal are coached by Unai Emery. They're a very competent possession team, and you can see that in La Liga. They score a lot of goals, or they create a lot of good chances. Their defense is middling, but they possess the ball a lot. They tilt the field, meaning they have the ball in their opponent's third more than the opponent has the ball in their third. They're not very direct, which is a hallmark of most good possession teams, right? They play slowly, they build slowly, and they don't attack through crosses, they attack through the middle. So these are all things that you'll see from your Barcelonas, your Real Madrid, Sevillas. Villarreal are kind of with that group in La Liga. In the Champions League, particularly in the knockout rounds of the Champions League, where they've been defending leads against really good teams or much richer teams like Juventus, like Bayern Munich, they played totally differently. So again, they're not creating as many goals forward. They're creating or they're allowing chances, at a higher rate. But strikingly, they're not possessing the ball, right? They're letting the ball into their third. The one thing that does kind of stand out is that they're not just a bunker and counter team, right? They're still not totally direct. They're only in the 60th percentile for directness, even in these games. So like we talked about, and they're only crossing the ball, about an average rate for a Champions League team.
And Unai Emery, we know, is a coach who, okay, it didn't work out for him at Arsenal. He did have that stint at PSG where he won quite a lot, but then you would expect that at PSG. But his record in Europe with Spanish clubs is outstanding, isn't he? So you've got 3 Europa Leagues on the bounce with Sevilla. He took Villarreal to a Europa League win as well. He also took Arsenal to the final the previous season. He's a coach who knows how to adjust and adapt.
Exactly.
Based on the circumstances, based on the imperative of knockout football, shall we say. Does that mean, he's a little bit derided over here, but are we talking about someone who's actually really a top echelon coach who maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves because of how it worked at Arsenal?
Yeah, I think that he's done a good job at many clubs, and Arsenal had their own issues when he was there, but his record in Europe speaks for itself, and I think it speaks to a coach who's able to train his team in the tenets of positional play, of possession soccer, but also then to adjust that style in a way that you really have to be able to do in knockout rounds, especially when you're playing teams like Bayern Munich and like Liverpool in this coming round.
So let's talk about Liverpool now. So obviously semi-final against Liverpool, and there are going to be stylistic similarities between Liverpool and Nagelsmann's Bayern. Obviously the shape is going to be different, although the way that Liverpool use their fullbacks, and with Fabinho or Thiago dropping back, you do have that sort of similar 3 at the back shape with advanced players and stuff. We've created this image here to show basically who the key guys are. Moreno's out injured, almost certainly with a hamstring. That's a significant blow. So we're imagining that we're going to have a front line here of Danjuma and Chukwueze. That's going to have a lot of pace and a lot of ability to get in behind those Liverpool fullbacks. Who else are the key people in this game? Who should Liverpool be looking out for?
Yeah, so what I've highlighted here are kind of stat leaders in different aspects of the game within the Villarreal squad to kind of show who specializes in what. And we've talked about how they play a 4-2-2-2, but that's not necessarily like a Ralf Rangnick style narrow 4-2-2-2. These 2 right here can get super wide, and I think that we'll probably see that against Liverpool, where everybody wants to try to get in behind their advanced fullbacks. Danjuma is their leading goal scorer, or at least their leading chance creator on non-penalty XG. Whereas Chukwueze is more of a provider. He leads in expected assists. Behind them, you've got Coquelin, who's not really as much of a guy who gets up the wing like Lo Celso does over on this side. Coquelin will drop into the middle. He's a little bit more of a ball winner, right? A lot of tackles and interceptions. And Parejo, as we've already discussed, he's the guy who's in the middle of everything. He's the controller, he's the orchestrator, plays the most passes, most progressive passes, all that. Their build-up tends to focus on the left side, where you've got Torres, who's a really good passing center back, whereas Albiol is more of the stopper. He wins balls in the air. He's 6'3". He just shut down Robert Lewandowski. And then Estupiñán is going to overlap over on this side. So I think you're going to see a lot of build-up over here and a lot of attacking from over here. But ultimately, they're going to want to switch the ball over to Chukwueze and finish with Danjuma.
And have players like Capoue making these late runs in. It's an interesting squad, really, isn't it? Because you've got, Estupiñán was on loan at Watford, Capuo's bought from Watford, Lo Celso, Spurs cast off, similar with Foyth here. Danjuma came from the Championship. This is a team that has been kind of cobbled together a little bit, and you would look at it maybe as, Torres is kind of the star coming through the ranks, very elegant ball-playing centre-back. But the rest of this team is slightly misfitish, isn't it? I wonder if that, again, speaks to not just Emery's ability as a coach, but the way that he can get players who maybe have something to prove, like Coquelin, or have been released from a club like Valencia with Parejo, where maybe Parejo was thinking, I was a key guy there and I've been sold off. He can harness these players' additional motivations to try and get performances out of them.
Yeah, I mean, even Emery himself is a cast off from London, right?
This is true.
He sees what these guys have to prove and what they can offer when he plays to their strengths in a way that maybe other clubs didn't.
Yeah.
We mentioned that Torres is kind of a star, a young center back who's featured for the Spanish national team. So has Moreno, who we may hopefully see by the second leg. Really great striker who can also pull out wide as a winger. So they do have some really talented players here, but they've also got some role players that they've just fit together in smart ways, and they're just a really well-coached team, I think.
Yeah. So we think this will probably be a lineup that you'll see in that first leg against Liverpool. It's going to be very, very difficult for them against Liverpool. Obviously, what a side playing some sumptuous football, but Villarreal have shown that they can do it against Europe's biggest clubs. And a surprise, while it's not something I would expect, because you wouldn't a surprise really, would you? It is still very much on the cards. So we look forward to that game. Thanks for joining us on Tifo IRL. Thank you very much, John, for coming on.
Thank you.
We will see you again, I'm sure.
Hope so.
And we hope to see you again too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.